Welcome back to another edition here at Celtics Roundtable. Matt Ignal here, joined by Sam Sheehan and Lucky's Pipe. The Celtics are up 3-0 improbably against the Philadelphia 76ers. To answer the question of how we got here, we have the Athletics' Jared Weiss joining us today.
Heyo.
Jared, first of all, how are you? And two,
I'm amazing.
How did the Celtics get here? The Philadelphia 76ers were favored. You predicted on this podcast that Philly would win in 6. I think that was sort of the general consensus among analysts. I mean, what's going on?
Yeah, I just said that because I don't know what I'm talking about, so I just copied all my peers. No, I mean, I'm shocked as you are. I mean, we all knew that Ben Simmons was a fake rookie all along, so that's not a surprise. And the one thing that's been a surprise, that's a genuine surprise at like the high level in this one, is Tatum has just been unstoppable. Really, he struggled early on in the playoffs. It took him 3 games to figure out playoff basketball, and then he's been pretty much great since then. So I've been surprised how consistent he's been. The last game at the end there, I wrote my piece on The Athletic about this because I needed a shameless plug, was that he attacked, I think it was 4 different defenders in crunch time and scored or drew a foul on all of them, almost ended Joel Embiid's life there, which is pretty funny. And the fact that like Tatum, who we think of as like a newborn like baby that just like stumbled onto a basketball court and started dribbling, emotionally speaking, at least, like the fact that he did the whole like you got lucky thing to Embiid was amazing. that was so fucking great. I mean, he basically like pulled his pants down and put his balls on the table. That was really beautiful. And I think he said it at the presser the next day, but like he knows Joel. They both trained with Drew Hanlon, so like they've worked out together. They know each other, so it wasn't too much. It wasn't the Sixers Celtics Twitter level of feuding there necessarily, which I've been getting a crash course in since before we got on air here. So just Tatum just being like a straight up dad has been, I think, one of like the most pleasant surprises of the playoffs so far, and their game plan worked. I mean, I literally just wrote for the first week of the series, literally just wrote about the matchup against Embiid. I thought everything really comes down to 1, that chainsaw or whatever that is going on in the background. 2, that matchup against Embiid. If they could get away with single coverage on him, that means that they can handle all the crazy screens that JJ Redick sets, be able to stay tight to him, be able to not let Ben Simmons get ahead of steam catching the ball and explode into the paint. And it's worked. It's really worked. I mean, Embiid was really good it was a game 2 that he was really good in. And he's had some like huge moments here. He had some major moments in game 3 as well. But for the most part, Boston has found ways to pull him out and expose him on defense, and then mostly get most of his points either attacking in some of those amazing transition dunks, but for the most part posting up, which kind of slows down the Sixers offense and doesn't really give them much kind of momentum in their offense. So I think Stevens just had a perfect game plan, and it's worked. It's worked too well. I mean, like, they haven't played perfectly, but I'm suspicious that it's worked too well, which makes me concerned from their position for the conference finals against Cleveland, who Cleveland is either going to be like a pile of dog shit or be amazing. I really don't know which to expect yet, but they're probably harder to game plan for than Philly is, because LeBron doesn't have any weakness you can expose with him, except for that like
their best player can shoot literally everywhere on the court, and Philly's best player can shoot like 0 places on the court.
Well, literally no places on the court.
And I'll throw this back out to you guys in a second. One of the big things that it's one of the lucky things that Boston's had to deal with is that Embiid with that mask, that affects him a little bit. And I think Embiid would have been more of a weapon from the perimeter and shooting the ball, which would have made this a lot tougher series if he didn't have the mask on. I think Brett Brown earlier today acknowledged that was kind of an issue. Joe's refused to. It's funny because as much as we've kind of like really rided Ben Simmons for just refusing to own up to like any of his mistakes, to Embiid's credit, Embiid literally says, I play like shit every single time that he has like even like a somewhat below excellent game. So Embiid has been really good at taking all the blame, doing all the stuff that a veteran leader needs to do for a team. Simmons has been a little disappointing in that regard, but I think we should acknowledge that Joel has been playing. It's like he's playing at 75% really, even if he's physically fine, just because that mask screws up his shooting and his passing to a degree so much.
And I think that really what has swung this series, and I don't think you could really argue this, is the difference between, the Celtics young players, having, been in big games. I think Jaylen Brown getting experience in the playoffs last year has really helped him. I mean, he helped them, kind of get through the Bucks series. I think, Jason Tatum has just been absolutely not fearless. He's just been a absolutely lethal stone cold assassin. Like, having big games on the road in the playoffs in close games, that's so impressive. And you just have to look to literally the other side of the court and see how, Ben Simmons has not really handled this very well. He's everyone's asking, why is he not pushing in transition? He's not getting back. He's clearly one of the most talented players in the draft, and all trolling aside, he probably deserves Rookie of the Year. So that's why this makes this so much more, jarring and shocking, just from that perspective. But I do think that this is kind of where the, losing for 4 years in a row on purpose might kind of catch up to you, because the Celtics have kind of instilled this non-rattled, culture. It's very different to kind of instill unshakability and those sorts of things in just 1 year versus having built it over 5 years like the Celtics have.
Sam, are you saying that a losing culture might lead the fan base to a dunk over, say, winning games?
Yeah, I would say I'd say that losing culture might end up in someone getting confused and maybe dropping confetti in a home game that you actually lose.
That would be really embarrassing.
That would be incredibly embarrassing. So I don't know if I probably wouldn't show my face in public if I were a fan of a franchise like that. But that's just me.
Well, okay, so the confetti, I mean, we know the confetti thing was just an operational mistake, but we don't.
I'm going to push back on that.
Okay. But also that guy's shirt was amazing. But yes. I saw that whoever that fan was that tweeted that out that went viral about the dunks. That is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. I don't care. The Sixers fans should. The only thing that was dumber was I saw there was a change.org or something like that petition to get Brett Brown fired because they weren't going to make it past the second round. The year after they had the third pick in the draft. I mean that's insane. Brett Brown's a good coach. He might be getting outcoached, I think, from an objective perspective and from a close-up perspective. He's getting outcoached by Brad Stevens. A lot of people starting to feel like Brad Stevens is maybe the best coach ever. He's a really good coach. I would argue Brad is right now the best coach in the NBA, and let's not call him the best coach ever. It's a little excessive. But it's you lose the first time you get to the playoffs. That's what's happening to Philly. The fact that Philly got out of the first round is amazing. Next season, Philly should be in the conference finals and should be making a strong run for the title, especially if Markelle it's just a valuable rotation player. Joe's going to be a year better, probably won't be wearing a mask. I mean, who knows? Simmons, I don't really care as much about the fact that Simmons won't shoot outside of 5 feet. I'd say 5 feet, really. It's that my biggest problem with him is that he doesn't fight through contact when he has an opportunity against the lane as much, and he picks up the ball way too much. And that's his biggest problem. And we've seen a few Celtics doing it against Milwaukee, and that was a huge issue. But Simmons had a few of those turnovers or even non-turnovers, or just plays falling apart, where he would dribble, see if there wasn't really anything for him. Instead of going out and resetting, he would just kind of keep trying to attack at weird angles and then pick up the ball and start panicking. That's the worst thing. Philly can work through that stuff next year, and they're probably going to be a 55-win team next year, and they'll probably be going really deep in the playoffs, if not making it to the finals.
Yeah, I mean, even if they do get anyone with the cap space this year, they're still going to have another year. They can kind of punt on that cap space and try again next year. So they can do, kind of something similar to what they did this year. Or give someone who fits an enormous contract like JJ Redick or Amir Johnson, whoever you want to, pay to kind of get them in there. Shouts to the big dog, by the way. Tough to see him going through this. That's the only thing that makes me feel a little bad about this. Amir, come home.
All right, today's show is brought to you by Mack Weldon, the premium men's essential brand that believes in smart design and elegant fabrics. They were sick and tired walking into department stores. Sorry, I'm reading this for the first time. It's in all caps. But so I'm sorry if I'm shouting right now. They were trying to buy socks, underwear, undershirts, and not getting consistent results. So they started their own company. Wow. Mack Weldon products will be the most comfortable you try on. They believe that so much that if you order your first pair of underwear and don't like it, Mack Weldon will refund your money, but you can keep the underwear. They believe in smart design, premium fabrics, and simple shopping. All right, Mack Weldon is better than what you're wearing right now. So what are you waiting for? Log on to MackWeldon.com today and use my promo code Celtics for 20% off your first order. Again, that's 20% off your first order on MackWeldon.com, just entering my promo code CLNS. That's 2 different promo codes. Try them both, Celtics and CLNS. Sorry if that sounded like a middle school read right there. Yeah, so Brad Stevens, yeah, he's dominated this series. I mean, what he did in Game 3, like, I mean, that just belongs in like the coaching Hall of Fame. What he did, just recognizing, Cole Zwicker, had a nice little thread on this on Twitter, pointing this out, friend of the show, that Brad Stevens noticed the Sixers coverage, that they were switching everything, and that they would have Covington switch onto Horford in a pinch, and then Brad drew up a play that got a layup for Horford, that he drew up a play that got a layup for Jaylen Brown. I mean, you could hear the Sixers fan on the broadcast like telling his friend that Brad Stevens is getting a layup basically every time. We could talk about the Sixers having maybe a little bit of a talent edge. Maybe the Celtics are playing a little bit harder, but I think the Celtics' main edge in what has been a close series thus far has been Brad Stevens drawing up the right plays late in games. Perhaps even most important of them, calling a timeout, almost a disrespectful timeout on Marcus Morris, isolating on the wing right there.
Correctly. Also,
yes,
by the
correctly.
way.
No, it was play the game almost there, but
he didn't want a rerun of the Bucks game, like honestly,
right.
like
yeah,
just like
yeah.
I don't really have a question here or anything. I'm just kind of marveling at Brad Stevens sort of like firmly like asserting like, hey, I am the coach of the future in the NBA, and I mean he's taken that mantle.
He's always been out of timeout, like on the micro level, he's been almost impeccable. He always draws up the right play. It's always great. But really this year is different because of the talent level of this team is so much different from all of the other teams. And I think he had, and his game planning as a whole, like the fact that he's letting Embiid shoot and he's letting Baines or Horford or whoever to contest the shot very well, and Embiid's shooting as many field goals as he's scoring points, which is great. Like, keep doing it. If you want to take 40 shots and score 40 points, go have it, buddy. But like the talent level on this team lets him kind of take a little bit of a side seat and let the players do what they have to do. Like Jaylen came up huge. He created overtime by just like going off. Like he was possessed by Smart, like Taka on Danganronpa. Like after he met the computer, he was just like, I'm smart now. I know you got followed up, but like I'm here to take overtime. And that's just like what happened. But that's a talent level. That's getting third picks. Like that's drafting Jason Tatum third.
It does feel great.
And like.
Yeah, no, it does feel great that like I feel like this is the first Celtics team that just really feels built for the playoffs. Am I right here?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, generic Danganronpa reference, yes. Did I say that right?
I'm sorry, I broke everyone's brains and ruined the show. I think to Matt's point, there is like, there's athleticism. You know what I'm saying? This is a very athletic team. I think the biggest thing that the Celtics have had that has really been a huge difference for them in their ability to kind of translate their defense to the postseason has been how many big, strong wings they have to throw at teams, and building a team around that concept has really helped them. The fact that they do have Marcus Smart, Terry Rozier, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Marcus Morris, Semi Ojeleye. Like you can go right down the list, and they can switch everything, and all of those guys can credibly check a lot of players, 2 through 4, and that's just, that's just so valuable in the playoffs. And I really think if the Celtics were to get to the finals and they were to see a Warriors team or something like that, that it would be more difficult than people expect. I think the Warriors would almost certainly still win, but it would be more difficult on the Warriors than people would expect.
I was going to chide you for getting ahead and like talking about the Cavs series, and then now you're just like jumping ahead right to the Warriors.
We're going to the
finals. When the Celtics play the Warriors for the 13th time in 2032, I expect that Jason Tatum as a wily veteran will do more. We can lock that in. 32 straight repeats for the Celtics Warriors.
Banner 24. Here we come, baby.
Yeah, what would that be? Banner 30? Whatever year?
Whatever.
All All right.
Okay,
Other topics before we wrap up here. Yeah, Jared, you got something on your mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, why don't I try to actually talk basketball for a sec? So,
Novel idea.
so
Let's do the damage I've done.
We were kind of on track there with some ATO stuff, and I think a lot of people that are on Twitter have probably seen some of the other stuff out there. But what's actually really cool that's happening right now is that every time Stevens draws up a late game ATO, some person that covered Butler or like a former Butler player or some assistant coach at a college somewhere will tweet out like a clip of him running the same play from like 10 to 15 years ago, which is always just like amazing. It's incredible to see how these things kind of sit in the back of his head and then he brings them out. And people talk about him being a genius, and it's usually like a little bit of overkill, but one area where he really is a genius is his memory is insane, and the level of scouting that him and the team do is insane. And like, I'll give you an example where after the game in game 2, I wanted to write about the way that Horford was drawing double teams. Can't remember if this is game 1 or game 2. This is game 1. This is game 1. So I wanted to write about how Horford was drawing double teams in the post late in the game because they kept getting mismatches every time Philly would switch a pick and roll in the last like 4 minutes of the game. And so I brought up how Philly kind of progressively throughout the game was getting more and more aggressive with their doubles, kind of waiting to disguise it, but then later in the game just getting, as soon as he would get it, trying to double. And Brad, his response was like, yeah, they were actually doing that earlier in the year where they would kind of like shark it for the game and then bring it out all the way at the end of the game. And for him, it's like when they come into a game, he has so much institutional knowledge of knowing how the Celtics and his teams have historically run their stuff and then how the opponent has historically run their stuff, where that he gives like answers after games where he says that they used to do it one way and then they started doing it this way. He knows more about the opponent than I do about his team, and I've been covering the team all year, and I've been scouting the team all year. And the him and the staff, their ability to like learn the Bible on their opponent and be able to just during games and like in one day, we have like one day to prepare before this game comes up. Just in those small little time frames for them to make these adjustments, they are able to have like a full institutional knowledge of how that other team operates and be able to recognize the differences and all that kind of stuff. And he just like tosses it out offhand. And it really blows you away, the amount of knowledge that he can retain. And where you really see that come into play is the big thing everybody was talking about after the game was how Philly was switching everything on the ATOs. Now, a really smart defense doesn't switch everything automatically, as they have targeted switches where there's certain guys that when they screen, they're going to switch. Certain guys when they screen, they're not going to switch. Simmons is a great example. If Simmons is setting a screen and then flaring to the three-point line, you don't want to switch on that because he's on a threat to catch and shoot. You just want to kind of go under and stay in front of him, but give him plenty of space to catch and shoot. Not a huge deal. So he saw when they I likened it to Stevens calling a timeout when Mook was like about to shoot it. It's like the rare golfer that can stop themselves in the middle of their backswing and back away from the ball. It's actually like almost impossible to do and requires incredible discipline to do. And it's the same thing with Stevens. Stevens, he always likes to, and I think he said this after the game, he likes to bring the ball back down court, see if you can get a good look. If not, then you call timeout. He let it roll dangerously deep, and thankfully he was able to get the timeout in time. But he saved 2 timeouts there for the end of regulation, or was it for the end of time? Thank you. Yeah. So he saved 2 timeouts so that he likes to see how the defense lines up, run half of the set, and then call timeout so we can recognize where they're switching. Saw that where Covington was switching, knew that Covington was going to switch on a Horford when they ran their set, realigned, and it worked out perfectly. And it was that set that they won the game with was kind of an inversion of the set that they almost won the game with at the with 25 seconds left in regulation. With Jalen, he likes to, based on the way that the defense is working in certain ATO situations, the same thing with Milwaukee. With Milwaukee, because of the way they were switching, he wanted to also go for lobs over the top to get to the guy on the other side. He knows what basic sideline out of bounds play he wants to run, but he has like 4 different variations of it, and he knows how he can use one variation to make the defense think it's coming from the corner, and then on the second time he runs it, he's going to have it just come from the guy underneath. So he is a master at making very subtle tweaks that make all the difference in the world and predicting what the defense is going to do because he's able to know how they like to do it one way, but how they can also react in another way. End of speech.
Mm-hmm. So, how much do you think the fact that Shane Larkin has extensive compromat on him, how much do you think that impacts his ability to, do his job on a day-to-day basis?
Listen, man, I'm gonna tell you, I think Larkin's been good, but that's one of the funniest jokes I've ever heard about the Celtics ever. It's so good. And I actually was reading some Cold War spy stuff earlier today by no relation Michael Weiss, even though that actually is my middle name, coincidentally. Some writer for the Daily Beast. He has all this really interesting Cold War stuff about compromat. And I was reading that the other day, and I was thinking about that tweet. It's one of the few tweets that just sticks in my mind from Celtics Twitter that's been stuck in my mind all year.
Shane's been a lot better without that insane Milwaukee Bucks length, but also whenever he's out there, the Sixers have kind of hunted him with Simmons and posted him into oblivion. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's what you live with when you have as many injuries as the Celtics do. So
I'm kind of surprised. He's had a bigger impact than maybe even Semi, which I thought he was actually going to play a big role against Simmons when he's kind of just been non-factor.
Yeah, why
they haven't needed him
on crucial possessions?
Yeah,
Semi or Simmons?
Semi, sorry.
Semi? I don't think they needed him because Morris has done a really good job against Simmons, and Horford's shut him down every single time. And everybody else, pretty much, when they switch on to Simmons, can handle him. I think Jalen switched on him a couple times, and Simmons tried to take him. It didn't work, and one of those was that time where Ben had to pick up the ball in front of the bench and almost lost it. So they just haven't really needed Semi yet. I think we'll probably see him in the next round because Simmons can be tough when he's driving, but he doesn't barrel people necessarily. He likes to use his footwork and his athleticism and his nimbleness, twisting in the air, to score over people. But LeBron's just going to barrel through people the way Giannis is trying to do. So Semi will play a much bigger role against LeBron. Tagging on Simmons, anybody on this roster can tag Simmons. Who can tag Embiid on this roster effectively? Even if you anyone besides Baines and Horford that tags on Embiid, Morris to a degree, but any of those guys, if they try to catch him while he's on the roll and try to stop him, as long as you pass it to him high and he can catch it without it getting stripped, he's gonna do something with it. Embiid can shoot a floater from anywhere inside of 15 feet. So if he just rolls to the free throw line and someone tags him and you toss him the ball, he's just gonna turn and shoot the ball, and that's a good shot. So I don't understand why they don't get him on the move. It's he's been awesome posting up Aaron Baines. It hasn't been that efficient, but it's amazing to watch him work on the block. And nobody can score on Aaron Baines the way that he can. He's one of the most unstoppable post scorers of our generation. It's not the question. It's just that we don't post up that much anymore because it's not very efficient. And there are more efficient ways to get a big man the ball, and especially someone like Embiid, who you give him the ball on the move and he's going to do some amazing stuff with it. And they've barely done it in this series, and I don't understand it.
Yeah, just when they get Embiid action going to the hole, he's just such a monstrous, fluid athlete. He Euro steps guys. You know what I'm saying? That's how agile he is that he can Euro step guys out of a pick and roll, as a dive man. And I can't think of any other big man who has the agility to do that. And I don't get me wrong, good looking out, Brett Brown. I also appreciate him not calling that timeout in Game 2 when they cut the lead way down. So he's South Portland's own. I appreciate him helping out the Celtics like this, but it is kind of baffling.
Didn't Embiid, they ran a 5-4 pick and roll where Embiid hit a jumper off the dribble. It was one of the most unusual things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
That was my favorite play of the game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a ridiculous talent, and he's going to get better from here. Simmons is extremely talented, but he's got a very serious weakness that the Celtics are perfectly equipped to exploit. And he's got to play a little bit harder too. I think, especially on the defensive end, he's gotten exposed a couple of times. And I mean, gosh, this Celtics roster is just so perfectly constructed to stop Philly, and they're also able to create their own offense. It just feels great.
It really does.
All right,
it really does.
So let's end on that note. Celtics play again at 6 o'clock. This is coming out on a Monday. So yeah, the Celtics will play at 6 o'clock today. Game 4. We'll be looking forward to it, and we're gonna have a podcast for you coming your way. So if you like this show, hit that thumbs up. Give a subscription to CLNS Media. If you prefer to check us out on the go, you can check us out at Boston Celtics newsfeed. Available on pretty much any podcast app, or you can just download the CLNS Radio mobile app. You can find us on Twitter at CLNS Roundtable. Where can we find you, Jared?
Jared Weiss NBA on the tweets and Instagrams, and subscribe to the Athletic Boston. We have a playoff deal going, which is, I think it's athletic.com/Celtics playoffs, I believe. Just go to my Twitter and you'll see it there. But yeah, subscribe. It's cheap, and you get to read me break down film stuff.
I'm a subscriber. No joke. I'm off camera, but I actually do have the shirt on.
Do you really?
That's pretty sweet. I do.
100%.
I do.
Well, I don't have a shirt, so I'm very jealous of you. So one day I'll get my shirt. But yeah, I hope it's been worth it for you. I mean, it's worth it just for the shirt, right? But
yeah. That's the only reason I subscribe.
I'm here to read you and Jay King's posts. So
and don't forget Clevis Murray too, CLNS as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Jared Weiss, Lucky's Pipe, Sam Sheehan. I'm your host, Matt Ignal. And we'll see you tomorrow.
We've got it.
Wait, hold on. I got a question which I forgot to ask.
I got to run. This is exciting, but I love you guys. I'll talk to you later.
Before you go, Jared, who's
Sure.
the better long-term prospect, Simmons or Tatum?
Ooh.
Tay man, Taco Tay. The three maker.
Oh God, it might be Tatum, honestly, which is insane. But
Yeah, it's not crazy anymore.
it's like, I mean, what's a better comparison? Would you rather have
Lamar Odom or LeBron James?
I was trying to think. Like, there's no one. Magic's too good of a comparison.
Mm-hmm.
But would you rather have, let's say Luka Doncic ends up as good as I think he's going to be. Would you rather have Luka Doncic or Kevin Durant, regardless of age?
Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think Tatum might be almost as good as Kevin Durant. So Tatum will probably be a top 10 player, and Simmons might be a top 10 player. I'm more confident that Tatum will end up there. Simmons, it's just like if Simmons can have a passable, like Simmons is basically, I mean, he is tall Rondo.
I bet Simmons at least gets like something together. I mean, he's really young. Like,
I mean, he redshirted, but like the thing is, he redshirted a year. He's still like he won't try. Like that's what is crazy. Like Smart was a bad shooter, and we all established that. But like Stevens was like, dude, you need it, so you got to try. And it's like if we have to go through the humps, that's one thing. But you got to throw the ball.
That's a testament to Stevens.
I think he'll be saved by the fact of the times kind of like Harden, where I think he'll literally be shamed into it. He seems like a guy who checks his like Twitter ads, and he might just like be internet shamed into like working hard at it. And that might be what it takes.
I mean, he's been practicing this for years. Like I've seen videos of him shooting threes like before the draft, all that stuff. He's gonna put it into overdrive this summer. So I mean, I expect him to shoot it. I don't expect him to be any good at it. I mean, he's gonna get better. But Tatum Tatum. You know, he might be the better playoff player. He's much more difficult to scheme against.
Yeah.
So for one, Simmons isn't the kind of guy that checks his mentions. He's the kind of guy that searches his own name. It's a whole different level.
Yes.
He's like Shane Larkin level.